Follow me on Twitter.
Hey, I'm UFC President Dana White, and you're in the ring with Callum McGregor.
To me, the Lions are the number one rankings out there. Those guys are the ones who really do their homework.
Man, that's why I'm saying the rankings are bullshit.
From Canada.
Got a really high fight IQ.
For this fight, I'm telling you, it's a flip of a coin.
Levels to the shit.
So many high-level guys.
So, like, the line is crazy.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, welcome back to another edition of the Don't Tap Podcast. Retooled, regrouped. We had to take a week off. That is officially our first week in 2 years that we had missed a podcast. So I apologize to the loyal listeners, but you will benefit the long term. What we want to do is try to get out cleaner, concise. We just need to make sure that we're being more efficient with our time, more or less. As far as the fights, we want to focus in on spots that you want to see, focus in on spots we feel most confident in, rather than just picking podcast plays. Nick's got his own sharp spots. I have my own sharp spots. Sometimes it gets muddied up when we try to blend them together. So let's try to just figure out our spots. But before I even get into any of that, Hub Sports Radio Zone, Billy Broz back on the line here with Don't Tap Podcast. Billy, welcome back to the show, man.
What up, boys? Glad to be back, man. As my boss has always told me when I first got into the content business, they only care about the winners. Fuck the predictions. And that's always been a motto I live by.
100%, man. It's one thing that we were doing. We're chopping up the full fight breakdowns, digging in so hard. And it's great for my own ego to feel good to throw all these breakdowns out there. But, oh, there we go, bobblehead. But then the reality is we got to make sure that we're actually focusing on specific spots and finding the winners, man. If you're not winning, you're not, it's irrelevant. So let's dig into the fight card that is coming up this weekend. We have UFC Fight Nights. We have Jorginho Rozenstruik coming in against Jailton Almeida, the killer, absolute killer. And the way that we will be doing this podcast will be all three of us will be bringing our three best spots. If they overlap, then we'll really focus in on one fight and talk about it. At the end of all of our spots, it could be props, it could be money line, dog plays, whatever it is. We may find a parlay too. We may find some specific things as we're talking, and we can throw those out there as well too. After that, what we'll do is we'll go down the line, quick picks on the full card, and then from there, any other spots that people want to throw out there, or red flags, or anything, line movements that people want to talk about. So first, Billy, you know what? You're the guest of the show. I will let you take it away with what you feel is one of your stronger plays on the card. What do we got? Money line, prop play, and what fight are we talking about?
Yeah, let's go with a money line play. Started it right off the bat with the underdog of the night for UFC Charlotte, which is an early card for the people out there that are listening. That card starts at 11:30 East Coast time, so we're getting a nice little brunch of fights for Saturday morning. But my underdog for this week is going to be Douglas De Silva Andrade, man. I know Cody Stamann snapped his 3-fight losing streak, picking up back-to-back wins. Granted, over lesser names in the division like Eddie Weiland and Luan Lacerda, who was a UFC debutant when he fought. I once thought Cody Stamann was fringe top 15 division during COVID, and in reality, he's more like through that 25-30 range. Stamann looks the best when he's able to mix into takedowns with his boxing, but his striking still left to be desired. He's definitely durable, though. He's never been knocked out before in his career, which is actually very telling because while Douglas De Silva Andrade is a potent finisher with powerful strikes on the feet, he has a really good ground submission game as well. Not the type of guy that's going to do like the wrestling, but more of like the Saeed Nurmagomedov type, the dude that's just going to throw you up in a bunch of submissions. But sometimes in MMA, betting on the more dangerous fighter leads you in the right direction. While Cody Stamann's path to victory heavily relies on the decision, I think Douglas De Silva Andrade is clearly the more dangerous fighter. Usually in these striker versus grappler matchups, I usually lean towards the wrestler more times than not, but give me the striker at this one at plus money. I see both of these fighters being technically patient on the feet, a little bit low volume, but the judges deciding with the damage of Douglas De Silva Andrade. My concern would be if this fight goes the distance. Silva's 6 wins in the UFC, 3 by finish. So he's 3-3 in decisions in the UFC. While Stamann's record, I mean, dude's a fucking decisionator. I mean, he's 6-2 with his only finish in his career ever being against a retiring Eddie Weiland. So it's a little bit of a risky type of bet, but the line movement's telling me I'm thinking in the right direction, and I'm probably going to pull the trigger on this one.
I'd have to agree with you on that one. The line movement was sort of what led me to a stay off on that. I was actually leaning on Stamann. I thought the wrestling might do it, but then De Andrade's a dog. And he keeps it on the feet. It's going to be ugly, mucky, and murky, and you don't know if it ends late or goes to decision with who knows. So solid play. Nick, What do you have for your play?
I'm going to start off with a chalky favorite, but I'm going to spice it up a little bit by bringing it to plus money. I'm going with Natan Levy and Natan Levy by submission, specifically second round submission, if you want to get real juicy with it. But I think Pete Rodriguez is the type of guy that belongs on like street beefs. Like, I don't rate this guy very high. Like, I know I see a lot of love, man, and like I do not understand it. Like, his KO wins have been against absolutely nobodies. And I understand like the point that people bring that, Natan Levy doesn't like getting pressured and he doesn't like getting hit, but the grappling is going to be there all day for him. And I think he's going to be able to get the fight to the ground early and often. And I think he'll be able to get a submission in the spot. I just don't think Pete Rodriguez has the grappling defense to deal with him in the spot. And I think even if he does clip him, he'll end up on the ground fairly quickly.
My only concern with this fight specifically is this feels like one of those type of fights where the UFC wants the A side to win, but the A side doesn't pull it out like the way that they thought that they drew it up in the back room with Sean Shelby and shit like that. I feel like Natan Levy, like while he's made me a lot of money before, backing him at a minus 300 price tag. I mean, going back to what I was talking about in the last fight, sometimes betting on like dangerous fighters, people that that are going to get finishes. I mean, we're betting on a minus 300 guy that historically goes to decision. I mean, Pete Rodriguez, anytime Pete Rodriguez fights, it just screams under 2.5, but it's just like, man, with Natan Levy being in there and the way that he patiently waits for his opponents, while I think it's a profitable way to win money, I just don't know if I want to put money on Natan Levy at minus 300 this week. I feel like he could be the parlay buster.
Now, to counter that point though, like the one thing that, and I won't put this out as like any sort of podcast play, but like my biggest example of this was Andre Fili against Joanderson Brito, is you can just play the win condition though. Like I played Joanderson Brito first round KO at plus 1,400 and that cash because I had Fili in a lot of parlays, but I still had that win condition. I think if Pete Rodriguez wins, it'll probably be a first round KO and you're probably gonna get at least plus 1,000 on that.
I definitely do agree with you on that. Thinking back to the Stephanie Egger fight a couple of weeks ago, I had Stephanie Egger and Kyle Borrello in the parlay, but I bet on the underdog, the Russian Ronda Rousey girl by submission, and that shit was 12-1 odds. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I lost the parlay, but if you hit a straight bet 12-1 odds, I mean, all that shit evens out by the end of the night.
You look a lot better at the end of the day, too.
Yeah, it looks a lot better in the Instagram reels at the end of the night, but that's not what we do it for, man. We do it for the bank accounts. I just don't know, man.
If you're really stuck on Natan Levy, maybe look at an SGP, try to figure out how to get value, but not overshoot yourself because if you really feel strongly he's going to be the side, just try to get that over 1.5 like right before the fight. Try to get that SGP right before, see where you can get some value if you can dig with it. So
that's a good way to look at it. Natan Levy to win and fight to start round 2 or something like that. I personally just don't think Natan Levy's the type of guy that's going to go out here and finish a guy early. But, Styles makes fights. And the way Nick was describing it, that definitely is how Pete Rodriguez fights. He's the definitely get up in your face type of dude that's going to swing bombs. And that just leads to finishes.
Leads to some takedowns, which leads to those finishes for sure. Okay, I'm going to jump into my number one spot. It's one of the first bets that I made. Angela Hill was one. Obviously, that's off the card now. Anthony Smith at plus money, just because I wanted to jump on Anthony Smith at plus money, and we'll talk about that later. But Alex Morano. So I was looking at Alex Morano, looking at the matchup. I think it's his fight all day long. I think that on the feet, he presents a huge problem for Dirty Bird. Morano coming in with that solid high guard. He sort of paws out and sort of finds his range, tags you. Morano really the higher volume guy, more damaging striker. He's landing at about 80 to 100 strikes in his fights, the 3-round fights, when he's in a striking battle, when there's no grappling involved and they're just standing toe to toe. This may hit the ground a little bit, but Dirty Bird's not going to get one of his opportunistic submissions on a guy who's a black belt in Morano. I think it's going to nullify and back on the feet. And we're going to have a greasy guy, Morano, who's burned me so many goddamn times in decisions. So I like actually this fight goes to decision as the first bet of the night at minus 120. Minus 120. Well, was that one of your plays you got?
Yeah, I was going to let you finish and add on to it because that's so funny you ended up picking this fight out of all the fights on this card.
And then Morano by decision at plus 150. I just like it. I think that Morano more often than not has burned me. Yeah, he got knocked out in his last fight playing games with Ponzinibbio. but I just think that his skill set is there. His pedigree is there. I was talking with Mike Malott about it today. That was sort of the side he was leaning as well too, and we sort of saw it the same way as well.
No, I can't see Morano getting the takedown in this one. Dirty Bird's takedown defense has gotten a lot better. He's been focusing on his wrestling. I think he's coaching wrestling now. I don't know. I see it going the distance. Maybe. I think Morano will probably outpoint him.
So I'm going with Morano. I think it's just, even the fight ends in decision, I just think it's probably one of the more solid plays, or an overplay on this at minimum is the way to look at this. So, and what were you thinking, man?
I think you're hitting that nail in the coffin, man. I feel like one of the profitable ways to, like, if you're running on like a bad streak, or you're looking just to pick up a couple units off of UFC betting, fuck aside, pick a total, man. Like the Bilal Muhammad fight last week, that was pretty much a lock to go over. I felt very confident, and that's how I feel about this fight here, man. It's funny that you picked this fight. You told me pick 3 fights prior to the card, and this is one of the 3 fights that I actually wrote up a lot of shit about.
It, right? So then there's 2 people on it. If Nick's even feeling strong on it, this is going to be one of our solid plays that people are going to ride with, right? So I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like these are 2 veterans in the organization, while neither fighter is really top 15 in talent. I mean, they're both very entertaining fighters, and this is primarily going to take place on the feet, like you said. I mean, Tim Means being 39 years old, it seems like Father Time is catching up to him, though. Coming into this fight at big underdog odds, if both these 2 fighters were in their prime, so Tim Means about 5 years ago, he'd probably be favored against Alex Morono, to be honest with you. But Morono coming off a disappointing loss in this last fight, which snapped a 4-fight winning streak, could be some line value on him. Morono has really good technical striking, but he's always lacked the KO power, why I don't really like betting him at chalk prices. Out of his 11 wins in the UFC since 2016, he's only gotten 3 finishes under the UFC banner. Historically, he's been durable besides the Ponzinibbio and Chaos Williams knockouts, which are somewhat flukes in my opinion. Since signing to the UFC in 2014 for Tim Means, his second stint in the promotion, he's only had 6 finishes on his record, and he hasn't gotten a finish since 2019. His durability, though, is what makes this play a tad bit risky, because I feel like his durability is declining fight by fight. And it's usually the younger names in the promotion, of the Kevin Hollands of the world, the other guys of the world, that are usually smoking Tim Means early on in these fights. I think the over 2.5 of this fight, I've seen opening numbers at -160 is great money. And I actually have fight goes the distance as well, written down at -130.
Nick, we've gone through a spot there. What is your next spot on the play?
I'm gonna switch it up a little bit from what I sent you, because I don't want to just be just talking about chalk. I'm gonna go with Gabe Green. I think Brian Battle got a lot of hype over the KO win that he got, but if you look at this guy, man, he's so hittable. And although he's coming in here with a reach advantage, the guy doesn't throw a lot of volume. And we even saw it with Gabe Green and the Johan Lioness fight. He got dropped badly and got right back up and kept throwing bombs and was able to get a finish later in that fight. The line's kind of moving, which is the main reason why I'm bringing it up, as I was just looking at best fight odds, because I locked it in earlier today at -120. I see it's now at a -135. So the line movement is heading in that direction. And I think he's just going to be able to piece up Brian Battle. I think Brian Battle will be live early, but I see Gabe Green just taking over. His boxing is a lot crisper. He's got a better chin, in my opinion, and he wears damage a lot better. Even in his fight with Ian Gary, he was never really out of that fight, and he proposed some problems to Ian Gary as well. So I got to go with Gabe Green.
That's so funny that back-to-back picks for you two are the last 2 fights I actually have written up on. Gabe Green versus Brian Battle. There's always like a fight in the early prelims that you gotta put it in the packages and stuff to make the people happy. And out of the fights in the early prelims, as I call them, Gabe Green versus Brian Battle seems like the one to make money on. I feel like Gabe Green's coming somewhat undervalued, considering the fact that he lost to Ian Machado Gary the last time that he went out there. But the one thing that we've all thought in the betting community that kind of made Ian Gary a little bit somewhat of a sketchier favorite, if it wasn't on the Adesanya card, is the fact that I feel like Gabe Green's cardio is really his best attribute. I mean, Duke can go 15 minutes or he can end that shit early, and he throws a lot of volume. The one thing about Brian Battle is I feel like a lot of the times that he's winning these fights off of just being the better cardio fighter. He fought Renat Fakhreddinov his last fight, a Russian, Granted, a Russian that might not have the best resume, but the only reason why he doesn't have the best resume is because he can't fight other Muslim people. And he got absolutely fucking smoked by Renat Fakhrdimov. And everybody in the betting community was betting against Renat Fakhrdimov, saying that he was a fraud. If Gabe Green had a little bit more offensive wrestling, I think this would be a lock at -160, -175. But because we don't have that confirmation that Gabe Green's going to wrestle and this is going to be a striking fight predominantly for 15 minutes, but if the takedowns did come from a side, honestly, it might come from the battle side. I feel like against Takashi Sato, or was it Trayshawn Gore that he was using the wrestling in? One of those two fights he was using the wrestling in. And on the Ultimate Fighter, he submitted Gilbert Urbina. The more and more I look into this fight, the more and more I'm tempted to play the under. But I think Gabe Green could just be the right side and I just not get cute. I feel like the public is going to come in on Ryan Battle, and we're going to see this line bounce and bounce and bounce. If you didn't get in on the early line for Gabe Green, I feel like the only time you're going to be able to get in is probably after weigh-in Saturday morning. A lot of these times these lines switch after weigh-ins once the public goes to YouTube, watches the video, and they're going to see Brian Battle is significantly bigger than Gabe Green. And the line probably bounces a little bit.
And the line bounces a little bit, just like Brian Battle bounces in and out, bounce, plays that distance. He's been able to decision guys, and now but the problem is Gabe Green, if he bites down on that mouthpiece, breaks through that pocket and actually starts landing some shots on him, how does Battle respond to that? If he's not able to stay outside and really run his game plan. The other thing, though, Gabe Green will have to look for, and you were talking about the takedowns, as he does close that distance, Battle will look for takedowns in that situation as well, too. If he can't keep his distance away, he's going to shoot for those takedowns, too. So, for me, I don't know, man. Battle's a little bit of a risky one, but I think this is a sharp spot. I think that Gabe Green definitely has what it takes to go in there, bite down that mouthpiece, and just land some big shots on Battle, and maybe even put him out there. So, I was looking at the Alberg Pretoria fight and trying to find a way to see value in it because I just think it's going to end. It's ending inside the distance, definitely. I know there's some chalk out there for some of it, but I actually like Alberg. I mean, the inside the distance is a little chalky at -190. I don't really want to touch that for wing condition, but I like Alberg round 1, Alberg round 2 sprinkles at +170 and +325.
I'm a big Carlos Ulberg fan, but I've seen a lot of people on the knockout prop. I think Carlos Ulberg, one of the best parlay pieces on the board, granted, but a lot of these city kickboxing fighters and stuff like that are great technical strikers, but they usually go to decision in 15-minute fights. I don't know, with the handles coming in on Carlos Ulberg this week, I don't know how all that stuff works out. I think people are going to get burnt by playing his inside the distance prop, and he wins a clear 30
of their fights have been inside the distance. The last 10 fights combined, 9 have been inside the distance. So I just think it has a recipe of a car wreck. I mean, it may have
but look at the styles of fighters that he's fighting. I mean, Nikolai Nemegaranu is a dude that just stands in front of you and gets punches in the face. Fabio Sharon, absolute trash can. Kendi Njoku, under 2.5 machine. Then you look at the way Ihor, his last 2 fights. Mauricio Shogun Hura, the ghost of Mauricio Shogun Hura. That's and then Nikolai Nemegaranu, under 2.5. Dude, he fought in the Contender Series. Lucas Sadolski, under 2.5. Just the styles of fighters that they're fighting. I feel like Ihor Peteria, after going through those first 2 fights in your UFC career, you might want to come out in this fight a little bit patient. He definitely knows he's a huge underdog. You don't want to go out here and just hop up in a barn burner fight with a city kickboxing fighter. I think for both fighters, I feel like they're going to want to try to gauge each other out, gauge the distance a little bit. And sometimes Carlos Ulberg, like a lot of his knockouts aren't like a 1, 2, 3, 4 combo. I'm knocking you out. It's more of like he ends up punching somebody in the face, and he's generally surprised that they ended up falling. Like, I think he's more than capable of winning. I think he's more than capable of winning a 30-27 and making it look very dominant without him getting the inside of distance prop.
I think Ihor will fall over on himself if Ulberg doesn't KO him. Like all I picture right now is Jessica Andrade throwing 5 hooks in a row and everybody wondering what she's doing, and that's what I picture Ihor doing. Like, the fight IQ isn't really there for him. I think he's just gonna go balls to the wall, and Ulberg just being like the much better and technical striker is just gonna be able to clip him. But I get it. Like, Ulberg, he's not the type of guy that will force a finish. Like Nick, I'm not gonna try and pronounce the last name, but Nick.
Good idea.
I'm not even going to attempt this. But Nick was the one that, like, he gave him that KO. Like he just walked into the punches. So I just see Ihor being the similar type of guy because if anything's true, Ihor will chase the KO. Carlos Ulberg may not, but him being the better stylistic striker, like he's gonna be able to clip him. But
I see a counter hook. I got to be honest. I see a counter hook and Ihor's chin up in the air. He just is a little bit reckless at times, and I think that I fully get what you're saying about the city kickboxing too. I think that this easily could be just he stays on the outside, tags him up, bang, 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 and Ihor just sort of grinds through it and just gets shots off his forehead nonstop. But I think he's just going to run into a shot. I think he's just going to go full bore into one. And
I think people are sleeping on the potential wrestling. I'm on Carlos Ulberg, so I probably shouldn't be saying this, but I think people are sleeping on the potential wrestling upside of Ihor Peteria prior to his UFC run. If you watch a lot of his regional scene fights, he's pulling off heel hooks. He's doing rear naked chokes. He's more of like taking these people on the ground and pounding them or choking them out. I mean, he kind of fell in love with his hands going into the UFC contender series because that's just a spot scenario where you have to impress the boss.
All right. And then the last one, which I know that I'm going to get a lot of pushback on, it was more about the plus money when the plus money was there. The fight definitely I don't see going the distance, but it was Anthony Smith at plus money. I get the injury. I get him going down in this last fight. The one thing that sticks out is his volume. His volume isn't where it needs to be. The vet, he has more ways to win. I know a lot of reasons to fade him, I guess, because of, his time off. There is the volume. But, man, the strength of schedule is there. I just really don't think Johnny Walker – if you talked about Johnny Walker a couple fights ago, I get that he's got a submission since then and a knockout since then. But Johnny Walker's just hittable. And people sleep on Anthony Smith striking, although it is low volume. The guy has power, and if he touches him, he's going to hurt him too. He's opportunistic in the top game as well too with elbows, and then the submissions are there. So I don't know, man. I just think there's more options for Anthony. So when I got Anthony at plus money, which I did put out, got him at plus 100. That was the play for me.
I don't know, man. Anthony Smith, ever since his mom died, he's been on a really weird mental space, and it's very hard to really keep the consistency of Anthony Smith right now. And then on top of that, this dude's having competitive fights with the fucking in-town robber at his fucking house. How do you not beat the fuck out of the dude that's robbing your house and you're a UFC fighter? You're having competitive fights with the local robber, and you're about to now go in here against Johnny Walker? Nah, man, I can't do it. I think Johnny Walker – he's made improvements with John Kavanagh over there at SGB Ireland, and we've seen flashes of it in certain fights, but we have yet to see it all to come together for longer than 5 minutes. I think Johnny Walker shows a little bit of class, defends off the takedowns, and faster, stronger, quicker, younger fighter, more times than not, wins these UFC fights. And I just don't – for a person that has the name Lionheart, man, does Anthony Smith not do it for him?
Well, recently with him being injured and seeing him on the ground, I know I get that fully. I mean, the robbery thing did happen forever ago, although I get the sort of the joke on him not really fighting the guy off, but apparently he would yell at the guy. But there is one thing that when you sort of said about the mental thing that is a red flag for me. Listening to him on his own podcast, he has the rumblings in the back sounding like retirement might be there. Like he's like, as long as I go in and give my best, that's all I care about. I don't care about the win as much, that I make myself as happy. That is a red flag for me. It sort of scares me a bit, even though he's more worried about how he performs and not just necessarily the W. But I don't know, man. I still like Anthony.
I mean, he's putting in the right.
Man. I think strength of schedule, and I think, honestly, Johnny Walker's fight IQ is just atrocious. He's been knocked out multiple times. I get that he's younger and faster. The longer things are going to scare me and how that plays out on the cage if Smith can actually get him down. I think he's going to actually have to tag him and drop him or catch him in the clinch with some dirty boxing or elbows to really do something with that. But, I get it, man. I knew it was going to be a controversial one. I got him at plus money. Him when it's not at plus money or as the dog. I mean, I get plus 100 is not really plus money, but whatever. I wanted to take a shot.
My two comments would be, did you see the ESPN special of him and Johnny Walker? Because I thought that was very interesting about his day-to-day life and what he does to train. So, I mean, he's definitely all in on the camp. I definitely won't credit his question his motivation for this fight. But I see this fight specifically playing out how the Thiago Santos versus Johnny Walker fight played out. Everybody and their moms had the lock under 2.5, under 3.5, fight not to go to distance in the parlays. And to be honest with you, I thought Johnny Walker won that decision against Thiago Santos. And I feel like this is going to be one of those fights that goes 15 minutes. Johnny Walker, we see Johnny Walker and we're like, is this the same Johnny Walker we remember seeing in the highlight films? And it's not going to be. He's not that guy anymore. He's not the guy that goes in there in the first 30 seconds and blitzes people and acts like an idiot and strikes and stuff like that.
I kept trying to jump in.
Here's my thought. If you take me and Billy's thought, I like Anthony Smith and I like him as a bet, right? But if you're on the side of Johnny Walker and Johnny Walker's win condition is usually in round 1, let's sort of fade me a bit, but then go with Anthony Smith carrying this over into later rounds. If you think Walker finishes and it's over anyways, what's the over sitting at?
I think I kept trying to jump in, man. Like the over 1.5. No, it's good. The over 1.5 is plus 110, and I think it's a fucking steal. Like that's the only look whenever I look at this fight.
It's not a steal, though, man. It's not a steal. A lot of the times that Anthony Smith is losing these fights, he's getting smoked in the first round. And if there's a person in the UFC organization, especially at light heavyweight, that could smoke somebody in the early going of a fight, probably Johnny Walker.
You think he goes under?
You did just say it might extend over, though, right, Billy? You were just mentioning that you were saying that you could see it just going the full distance. So
I can see it going the full distance, but it's not something I'm not putting money on no over prop with Johnny Walker inside the cage. That's just not historically how I want to make my money. And
that's probably an example. It's probably an example of us trying to find an angle on something that looks cute and looks good on the internet. And if it hits, we look great. But
no, the plus money.
I get it.
The plus money makes sense. Anthony Smith wins this fight. This is gone over 1.5, and the 1.5 looks like the best bet on the card by a wide margin. It's just, I don't know, man. You can't tell me. I don't know, man. Lionheart is not the guy that you want to back. I feel like Johnny Smith.
At least says advice. Sorry, I cut you out there. At least says advice, then that's great advice right there.
I see a lot of leg kicks.
Aside, 1 second, yo. For any of you that think Anthony Smith is aside, Billy's saying it's going to go over. So don't bet Anthony Smith money line. You bet the over if you think it actually is going to be an Anthony Smith win, right? So don't get so much money on it if that is the case. But Anthony Smith not a suggested play by most people, and like I said, I got that plus money. It's not really a suggested play at this point. So let's just review some of the plays. Your strongest play again. What we've gone through it. We have Natan Levy by submission, and then we were looking at maybe an SGP for you, Nick. How do you feel about that? A Natan Levy SGP, maybe a Natan Levy in an under, or how would you play that?
Yeah, like Natan Levy and fight doesn't go.
Okay, Natan Levy and fight doesn't go. And then next, Billy, I think you and I came to a good agreement on the Morono and Means fights. You were looking at what the over 2.5 was. What was it sitting at again, Billy?
It hasn't been widely available. I haven't checked on it since last night, but the first opening line I saw was minus 160 on an offshore book. But fight goes the distance is minus 1. After the bullshit Alex Morono put off the last fight, you can only bet the over 2.5. The extra 2.5 minutes might mean something in the Alex Morono fight.
Fair enough. And really for like, what is it? It comes down to like an extra 25 points. Maybe the over 2.5 minus 160 will be the official play on that one.
Man, I'm not putting thousands of fucking dollars on this. I'm putting probably like 50, $60 maybe. And if I'm doing that, I'll pay the extra $10 for the juice. It's not that imperable. There's probably be a half unit, quarter unit play for me.
Okay. And then for Nick, you have Gabe Green at minus 135 money line. And then were you looking at Gabe Green by a finish or anything else by prop?
I took Gabe Green money line, but Gabe Green by KO, and it's plus 225, so I'll have a little bit of money on that as well.
Okay, perfect. So now let's just go down the actual card quickly, just do quick picks on every fight on the card.
I feel like it wouldn't be a UFC Charlotte card if we don't talk about the D-Rod versus Ian Machado-Gary fight.
Well, we'll definitely, I think all of us will probably have a say as we go on that one for sure. I actually got, I'm going to be posting it tomorrow. Mike Malott broke that one down. He wants to fight both those guys pretty bad. So he's watched quite a bit of tape on them. So I hope that, so if you see Ian Gary just sort of win in an unmiraculous way, and Malott goes into Vancouver and fucking steamrolls Adam Fugit, then you're going to see a call out of Ian Gary. And I get that it won't make sense for Gary because he's going to be behind him, but Depending on how that lines up, if he plays it right, he may get that fight. So, but okay, so let's just go down the line quickly and just do your quick picks, and then any little side notes that you have. But we'll try to keep it concise and just that way we can run through it all. First, we'll go through the main event. We have Gelton Almeida, the monster, coming in against Rozenstruik, the vet kickboxer with some power in his hands. I'm going to go with obviously Gelton Almeida. I would imagine that everybody's in kind, and really inside the distance isn't really even a play anymore. There's not really a bettable line on it. But Gelton Almeida is my pick. Billy?
My pick is probably going to be Gelton Almeida, but best bet on this fight is definitely fight to start round 2 at -112. I think we might see a little bit more of a patient approach from Almeida in this one.
Smart, level up in competition, so you may take a little bit more of a reserved approach. Nick?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm on Gelton Almeida as well. I have a play on Gelton Almeida by KO at +185. I don't think he gets the sub in the spot. Jairzinho's never been subbed, and I think at the end of the day he'll probably curl up before he's going to put out his neck. So I thought +185 coming from a -500 favorite is a nice way to turn a profit.
Okay, next fight on the card, we have Anthony Smith, Johnny Walker. We pretty much hit the nail on the head with that. I'm going to stick with Anthony Smith as my pick. I think, Billy, we know that you're on Johnny Walker, and Nick, you're on?
I'm on Smith, but I wouldn't put $1 on either guy.
I don't blame you. That's a good stay off fight.
Next fight on the card, we have Daniel Rodriguez against Ian Machado Gary. I know that's one you wanted to highlight, Billy. Take it away.
I think this is going to be people's main event. I'm a big Ian Gary backer, big fan of him. I think he wins the fight, but man, -295 is very hard pressed. I think this could be one of the potential parlay shitters of the night. If you told me D-Rod came in here and gave Ian Gary 15 minutes worth of hell on the feet for 15 minutes, I mean, we saw Ian Gary slip up the last time. Once you see it once, man, it can always happen again. And D-Rod ain't no bitch, man. I've done a couple interviews with D-Rod before, and his training regimen, man, is definitely underrated for somebody at that level, because a lot of people don't really – it takes a lot of money to put a lot of stuff into your body for camps and stuff like that. And D-Rod's doing the damn thing, man. I wouldn't be surprised if you Ian Gary here.
Yeah, I'm seeing him even at +250 at this point. I mean, if you're going to tell me you're going to give me D-Rod at this level, at that money, that's a little bit crazy, man. And Gary has shown he gets tagged. He's out there to be hit. So I wouldn't hate anybody for going on the Rodriguez side. I want to say Gary's the winner, but I just think there's going to be a time where someone's going to catch him. It's coming. We all know.
I agree.
We all know. We're just waiting. When is the sweepstakes over for Ian Gary? This could be it. I think it would be more of a volume KO. But man, I could see in a round where a volume just starts landing on Gary. It doesn't like it. It's backing up. I could definitely see that in this fight.
Yeah, the only thing that makes me not want to bet this fight pre-flop is I think Ian Gary wins the first round at a high clip, hence why it's a -300 line. Because that's the way you got to gauge these fights. If you think said so fighter is going to be up after round 1, you got to think about how the books are thinking about it. I mean, look at the Carl Williams line. It's -430 because that's probably the implied odds that he's going to be after round 1.
Makes sense. Nick?
This may sound like a degenerate as fuck play, but whenever it comes out with a split decision prop, I'm betting this fight ends in split decision. I think Ian Gary probably controls the distance, and I think D-Rod lands the bigger shots. And if we've seen anything with the judges lately, they don't know what the fuck they're doing in these styles of fights. So you're probably going to get a real juicy number, probably +1,000 or higher. Like everybody said, man, there's a time and place to fade Ian Gary, but they've definitely been cherry picking his fights, and I don't feel like this one's any different. And I just think that like if D-Rod was consistent in his performance, I would hammer that all day. But he's not the same person every single time he comes in the ring, and unfortunately, I don't like putting my money on people that I can't necessarily trust. So I'll get a little degenerate.
I will say though, his last fight, he took that fight on short notice and didn't really have a real camp.
What was the last fight? Lee, right?
Neil Magny.
Neil Magny, that's right.
UFC fight night card. They switched out some shit, and he fought Neil Magny on short notice. That was the fight after fought.
That's even happened
He's
at
supposed to
two of
fight
his last fights with Rodriguez. He's had it was a short notice or like an adjustment in his fight pre to that as well too.
Yeah, so the Yi Zhang Li fight, he cut weight 2 different times before that fight. Then the next fight was a short notice fight. He's cutting weight again. I feel like that describes a lot of the performance, and the betting odds are definitely not giving him any credit for that.
Yeah, and honestly, the lines are wide. Like it's just, as we all know, like they want Ian Gary to win, and it's kind of hard to fade him in spots where, like, at least me personally, I can't see a real angle for D-Rod. Like I can see him landing the bigger shots, but that's it. I'm gonna get a little degenerate with it. Probably plus 1,000 split decision. Probably.
Nick summarizes it though, dude. That is the exact way I see this fight. Like D-Rod might have won, but this is going to the scorecards more likely than not. If this goes to the scorecards, that motherfucker lost.
Yeah, exactly. Like the UFC's like handing out $100 bills. Like I don't give a shit. He won the first round and the second round. Fucking lost.
We have Alex Morano and Tim Means. Morano coming in, minus 220 right now, I think 225. Well, actually, 240 in some books. Morano's aside for me. I think that the line's a little bit, it's a little sketchy at this point now, a little bit too chalky. But I do like that. Fight goes the distance. I think that I think it was actually minus 125 that I got it at. But yeah, even that over 2.5 at minus 160, I think is probably the safest way to play this. Good on you, Billy. So aside, Billy, I believe you said you're on Morano, correct?
Yeah, I'm on the Moreno side. I just wouldn't want to parlay Alex Moreno. It's just a couple of red flags.
A wise man once told me don't parlay too many minus 200s.
Yes.
A wise man did once tell me that. So, Nick, what do you think about this one?
I lean Morano, but Means being 39 and Morano having piss poor fight IQ just makes it something I don't want to be invested in.
Okay, next fight on the card, we have Court McGee, Matt Brown. Court McGee being knocked out. The guy who's got a decision almost every one of his fights gets knocked out in his last fight. Matt Brown, I think this could be the last one. I really strongly do think this could be his last dance. Coming in as the dog at plus 185 on some books, actually even plus 200 on one book. What's your take on this one? I think Matt Brown has value at if you can get around plus 190 to plus 200, but I know we were looking at him as maybe the dog of the week, but I'm sort of, this fight sort of scared me a little bit. I sort of tailored back on this one. But what's your take on this one? Nick, take it away.
Yeah, I already put some money on Matt Brown. I think the line's wide. I think Court McGee generally wins fights where he can control. The only thing, the worst thing about this fight is Matt Brown opened up at a minus 160 favorite and now sits at a plus 200. So clearly people are seeing some things much different way than me. But I lean Matt Brown, man. I think he's the better striker. I don't think he can get this. I don't think Court McGee can get this fight to the mat. And I've always been a diehard Matt Brown fan, so I got to back my boy in this. Also, he had a song made by the legendary band Hatebreed. He comes out with a song called Immortal. So just pumping that out there. You got to do my thing, bro.
Yes. Billy?
Huge fan of Matt Brown, one of my favorite historical fighters. But for the people that are listening, got this deep into the podcast, I'm going to give you a little bit of a note here, man. Watch the UFC. This is a UFC on ABC card. Watch the first UFC on ABC 1 when Matt Brown fought Carlos Condit. That motherfucker got smoked. You named decision. He was a plus 175 underdog, around the same exact price tag he is this week. I once thought Matt Brown had value. Watched some tape and was like, Carlos Condit's probably going to win this unanimous decision. No value at all whatsoever on betting either side of these fighters. But would I hate you for taking Matt Brown at plus money? No. Historically, that's the way to go. But man, rewatch that UFC on ABC 1 fight of him versus Carlos Condit, and it's just like, I'm out.
Next fight on the card, we have Cody Stain. Oh, sorry, my bad. Next fight on the card, we have Chase Sherman, Carl Williams, fight that's already been set up. The line's set where it is. Carl Williams unbettable at this point. Chase Sherman just unpickable at this point. Take it away. I'm going to go with Carl Williams, but I ain't touching shit. Anybody?
I think Carl Williams. Last time we were on the podcast, it was funny because Carl Williams, we were feeling the Carl Williams by sub prop. I think I'm going to reel it back this week a little bit. Man, now we're in the moment. We're here going up to the window, and I think Carl Williams is just a parlay piece this week. Does Chase Sherman throw enough leg kicks to be live in this fight? I don't think so, man. I have a hard-pressed time of ever putting money on Chase Sherman. I get it. Carl Williams shouldn't be a minus 400 favorite over a lot of people in this division, but man, the fight being rescheduled and all that from the Sherman side, it just feels like the UFC's kind of like giving them the call, like, hey, buddy, you're still signed. We got to get you a fight here so we can get you out of it, get you your little pink slip and get on your way. I think Carl Williams runs through this dude, and I think he's a great parlay piece this week. It's my most confident pick of the week, honestly.
Yeah, like Carl Williams should 100% ride in the spot. There's a reason why it's a minus 400 favorite. Chase Sherman has no takedown defense at all. So as Billy said, parlay piece is good. You never know how these greasy heavyweight fights are going to go. I wouldn't chase value on this.
I feel more confident parlaying Carl Williams than John Almeida this weekend.
Damn.
Okay, next fight on the card, we have Cody Stamann against Douglas Silva de Andrade. I know Billy was talking about Douglas as a dog, and I got to be honest. When I was going through it and leaning Stamann just a little bit and looking at the wrestling, I actually sort of started seeing more and more reasons why de Andrade really is potentially the play on this one. At the plus money and then the backing of Mr. Pub Sports Radio, I may just tail this and call this a tail play and make this one of my official plays for the week.
Don't be surprised once this line comes down. I think by weigh-ins, Cody Stamann's going to go down all the way to like minus 140. I just don't see how you can bet on somebody at chalk money with the way the judges have gone and their decisionator. It's just not profitable right now in the UFC, relying on win conditions.
I think we'll make that a play and throw it on there as well, too, for sure. I mean, you'd already made the play, but I think that that's something that we're going to sort of push a little bit more. Next, we'll look at Carlos Ulberg and Ihor Pretoria. I was trying to dig for a play, and I may put it out for myself as a prop play, second round or whatever. I get your idea of maybe it sort of extends and maybe goes over or goes the distance, but I just see Ihor Pretoria chin out there and Ulberg just landing a beautiful hook. Maybe I'm getting a little bit too vivid with my decision, but really, it won't be a strong play, but I think Ulberg is going to be my pick. I may throw a prop out there. You guys sort of talk me back.
I think you get better money if you're going to bet the KO prop, skip the KO prop, and bet the actual round prop. So round one, round two, round three. You'll get better value off of that than betting the minus one KO prop. Because if he gets it done, it's probably going to be like you can even hit the specific method of victory: KO round one, KO round two, KO round three. Or you can go KO round one, KO round two, bet round three or decision prop.
Yeah, he's KO round two is plus 340. That's what I was sort of looking at. KO round one is plus 170. So, okay.
I do that a lot in women's fights. If I'm not like confident too much, maybe bet around one, round two, and then round three /
been happening
decision.
at a higher clip. I like to know what those numbers are on women's MMA in the past year on inside the distance versus what it was the past years. Just to sort of see what the trend is. It's interesting.
It is ridiculous, man. I mean, all those fights on that main card last week, man, I can't believe the most money I put on a fight to go inside a distance was the one chick fight on the main card. And it ended up being the best bet of the fucking card. I wish I put more money on it.
Next fight, we have Natan Levy, Pete Rodriguez. So quickly, Natan Levy, my pick. Nick?
Levy.
Yeah, round of levies. I think the over 1.5 is somewhat catching my interest, but maybe Nick's right.
Yoon Kim, Mandy Baum. Kim's going to be my side, but I don't want to touch this fight.
Reluctantly going to pick Mandy Baum by decision.
I'm
not putting anybody on that, though.
I'm on Mandy Baum, too, but I'd rather fucking throw it down to the wall.
We don't have time. Brian Battle, Gabe Green. Gabe Green for all three of us, and he's going to be a play of the week, one of our plays of the week. Actually, that I guess is a money line play. Minus 135 money line play of the week.
Wait till weigh-ins, though.
Yeah, fair enough. And we'll put that as an asterisk as well, too. And then Jessica Rose Clark, Lisboa. I think we're all going to be going. Well, I'm going Clark. You're going Clark. Nick?
Yeah, I'm going Jessica Rose Clark.
All three of us going Jessica Rose Clark. I'm Callum McGregor. Sorry for the rapid fire at the end there of the Don't Tap podcast. Trying to make things clean, concise, and get it in time. Billy Broz, we want you back as regular as we can possibly get you, my man. Love you being able to break down like our actual picks and actually being able to cap the capper. So it's excellent to have you on. Nick, I know you're laughing. I wasn't telling the man I love you, dog. I love you.
I'll take the love, man. We'll take all the love we can get around here.
I thought you caught yourself there. You're like, I love you. Then you paused and he just kept going. I was like, the fuck don't I know about this?
That just shows the friendship that we got, man.
That's it.
You know, follow me over on Twitter and get bills as usual, man. We're about to go into this UFC Charlotte early card this week. Let's go make some money, man. Everybody's gonna be sitting around the television at 12 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturdays, and we're not watching fucking cartoons. We're watching violence.
Let's cash while eating Fruity Pebbles and love it. Let's go.
Cheers, boys.
Don't Tap Podcast. Cheers, guys. Thank you very much, Billy. Love it. I think we found some good lines there.
I'm Gentleman Josh Hill.
I'm Aaron Jeffrey.
I'm Johnson Jazz Busiest.
I'm Mike Malott.
I'm Ruffian Stop. Tune into
Don't Tap.
Don't Tap
Podcast.
Don't tap.
Podcast.
Ron Jones.
Follow me on Twitter.
Hey, I'm UFC President Dana White, and you're in the ring with Callum McGregor.
To me, the Lions are the number one rankings out there. Those guys are the ones who really do their homework.
Man, that's like saying the rankings are bullshit.
I ain't motherfucker from Canada.
Got a really high fight IQ.
For this fight, I'm telling you, it's a flip of a coin.
Levels to the shit.
So many high level guys.
So like the line is crazy.
Oh, there we go. No, we're good. See, he's a pro.